The Big Four: Lloyd George, Orlando, Clemenceau, Wilson. Lloyd George and Orlando, tough-minded, concerned with such realities as economics, territories, punitive measures. Clemenceau and Wilson. Wilson with his 14 points. And old Clemenceau, who says, "Mr. Wilson bores me with his 14 points. Why, God Almighty has only 10. The conference finally opens on January 18th, with Wilson in a vulnerable position. Of the leaders of the major powers, only Wilson is not free to make firm commitments for his country. He must secure ratification of any treaty from the United States Senate. At his residence, the elegant Villa Murat, the president works in solitary dedication, concentrating on his beloved 14 points, which he believes must be the basis for the peace treaty. The most precious of them is the last, the establishment of a League of Nations. To attain this, Wilson will have to compromise most of the other 13 points, and the Senate will later nullify the 14th. Working at the Hotel Crillon, Wilson's staff is entrusted with the job of incorporating the League into the peace treaty. The whole world wants peace. The President wants his League, observed Secretary of State Robert Lansing. I think the world will have to wait. Colonel House is the man Wilson counts on to get the League through. The conference grinds on. Its chief concern, the carving up of territory. The Saar, Danzig, the Polish Corridor, the Sudetenland, place names that will haunt a later generation. The Italians have assumed that Wilson would champion their cause, but he opposes giving them the city of Fiume, and Orlando walks out, later to return. Finally, on May 7th, 1919, the Germans, under heavy guard at a Versailles hotel, are summoned to the conference room. The delegation, headed by the foreign minister, Count Brockdorff-Rantzau, will hear Clemenceau announce gruffly, "The time has come when we must settle our accounts." The Germans denounce the harsh terms they anticipate, and Lloyd George mutters, "It is hard to have won the war and to have to listen to that." The Germans are given time to file any objections and go back angrily to Berlin. Every segment of the population rises in wrath to condemn the treaty, this diktat, which the Germans say is a far cry from Wilson's reasonable 14 points. President Ebert calls it monstrous. Chancellor Scheidemann calls it a murder plan and resigns. So does Foreign Minister Brockdorff-Rantzau. Finally, knowing there is no alternative, the Germans give in. The new Foreign Minister, Hermann Müller, is given the thankless assignment of going to Versailles. Signing with him will be Undersecretary Johannes Bell. On June 28, 1919, 5 years to the day after the murder of Archduke Franz Ferdinand at Sarajevo, the peace treaty will be signed. It will be signed in the Palace of Versailles in the Hall of Mirrors, the same room where 48 years before Wilhelm I was proclaimed German Emperor after conquering France. the elaborate treaty arrives, 80,000 words in all. Germany must admit her war guilt, surrender her overseas colonies, reduce her standing army from its pre-war 800,000 men to 100,000, pay huge reparations, including some Allied veterans' pensions, the total amount to be determined later. The future of peace is entrusted to a League of Nations, but Germany is excluded from it. By insistence and by compromise, the Allies have created a peace undermined by fatal flaws. Germany has been cast loose, left on its own to work out its own destiny and its revenge. For those who call the treaty harsh, the Allies say it is mild compared to that dictated by the Germans to the Russians at Brest-Litovsk 15 months before. 4 years of cataclysm reduced to less than an hour of ceremony at the signing. When it is over, the fountains of Versailles are turned on for the first time since 1914, and Woodrow Wilson remarks, "Well, it is finished, and as no one is satisfied, it makes me hope that we have made a just peace, but it is all in the lap of the gods." As Paris goes wild, with planes flying under the Arc de Triomphe, an old general who for 5 months has been a part of the negotiations says, "We are in for a high period, followed by a low period. Then there will be the devil to pay all around the world."